right, we got a beautiful week one college football board to attack. So let's not waste any time. Let's start with a guy, Brad Powers, in the second half of the program. Former Michigan Wolverine Jake Butt will be with us to break things down from a former player's perspective. Brad, how you making out today?
Doing well. It's finally here. Very excited. Loaded Thursday and Friday card.
Okay, so if you missed Brad on Monday's show, he got ahead of some numbers. He gave out a bet for tonight, NC State. He had it at minus 11.5. That's all the way up to 14. And a Friday night game, UNLV Sam Houston gave out over 60.5. That is up to 61.5. So a lot of new viewers. So just to remind you guys again, Brad's going to be with us twice a week on Mondays. We're going to be giving out some best bets, hopefully getting ahead of some numbers, doing a little weekend recap. And then when Brad joins us on Thursday, we're just going to be ripping through the board, taking a look at all the marquee games and adding some best bets. And we will be adding some best bets here momentarily. But let me remind you, if you are new, make sure you hit the like and make sure you hit that subscribe button as well. NFL content starts rolling out next week, so you don't want to miss any of that. Okay, so let's add a couple of best bets before we get into all the big games. Let's start with Northwestern +6. Why do you like them?
Yeah, let me first say that I think this is, a rare time you'll hear me say this year. I think we got a very live 6-point underdog, which I would not be surprised at all if they won the game outright. We'll be happy if they lose by 5 or less. But what am I seeing here? I think the biggest mispricing is actually on their opponent's side, Tulane. They have a new quarterback. His name's Jake Retzlaff. He's a BYU transfer. Didn't transfer until the end of June. I think anytime you're going out and getting your starting quarterback at the end of June, says you have problems. He hasn't had as many reps, obviously, with his new teammates. And I think on the other side, Northwestern, they have one of the more underrated defenses in the country, and they're in their preferred role here. They're an underdog, the G5 school sneaking under the radar. Let's take Northwestern +6.
Okay, next up, we saw the Michigan Wolverines have a strong end to their season last season, and you think they're going to have a strong start. Big number here. They're a 34.5-point favorite, and you like them to lay the smackdown.
Yeah, I do. I'm laying the 34.5. Now, I will say this. Last year, I would have wanted no part of laying this kind of number with Michigan's offense. But I expect Michigan's offense to be better this year, despite the fact they're starting a true freshman quarterback in Bryce Underwood. Now, I'm not a Michigan homer here. We did a show earlier, and I said I'm betting under 9.5 wins on Michigan. So when I see a big power ratings disparity on a team I really don't like in other markets, then I think there's some significant value in that. This is the biggest power ratings disparity that I have. And on the other side, it's simple. I think the biggest mismatch, at least on the main board games, is New Mexico's offense against a national title contending Michigan defense. No bigger mismatch. Add a couple of things together. I'm laying it minus 34.5 Michigan. Go
Okay,
blue.
we'll get into the Saturday games momentarily, but of course we have just an avalanche of games taking place on Thursday and Friday. So let's discuss some of those. Probably the marquee game here today: Boise State -5.5 taking on South Florida. Total 62.5. What do you think of this matchup?
I did bet the under. I think it's just generally speaking a very high total for a game one. South Florida does run a lot of tempo, but that's expecting a lot against, I think, what is a legit Boise defense. Boise lost by far their best offensive weapon in Ashton Genty. So a lot of points. So let's go under. And I also do lean Boise after a big line move. This line has went from 9.5 down to 5.5. Numbers do matter. Not at this point now, I'd actually lean Boise -5.5.
Okay, standout game on Friday is probably going to be Georgia Tech. They're favored by 4.5, taking on a much different looking Colorado team. Total 51.5. Colorado under Deion Sanders been a pretty good bet as an underdog. What do you think of this matchup?
They have, and they've gotten the best of me in a lot of games the last couple of years. But here we go again. I'm fading Colorado. I like Georgia Tech here, and it's not just a fade on Colorado. I genuinely like Georgia Tech quite a bit. Bet them over their win total. Bet them, as a surprise contender in the ACC. They return their 2-year starting quarterback in Haynes King. I think Georgia Tech may have the most underrated staff in America. And then Colorado, you lose the Heisman winner. You lose, a super productive quarterback. And Shedeur Sanders. I don't see it from them. They relied on the portal yet again, and you just can't hit year after year in the portal. Even the best coaches don't do that. And I'm still, jury's out on Prime, how good of a coach he is.
Okay, let's get into Saturday. Let's get into the big one, Texas, Ohio State. Have you ever remembered such a big week one game, Brad?
There was one. I'm an historian, so I will give you an. There
That's
was
why
a
I'm asking
1-3
you.
matchup in 2016. It was, or no, 2017. It was Alabama taking on Florida State. It's kind of a dud. This one won't be a dud. I mean, this is legit. I will say this: everyone loves the 12-team playoff, and they want to expand more. Imagine how important this game would be if we're in the BCS or the 14 playoff era. I
Hell
mean,
yeah.
everything would be on the line right away. Now either team can afford a loss and hell, even another loss and still be fine.
Okay, so what do we think here? Ohio State, they don't lose a whole lot on their home field. They're favored by a point and a half, total 47.5. What do we think from a betting perspective?
Power ratings like Ohio State, my guts tell me Texas is the side. The market is, as we get closer to game kickoff, is saying Texas is the side. I'm gonna go under. Now, it was one of my favorite bets. Numbers do matter. It's down 3 points from where it was just a few weeks ago. What do I see? I see two conservative game plans with two new quarterbacks, and I think Texas' defense might be the best in the country. And I think Texas's offensive line is a major question mark. So we'll see how they fare against Ohio State's defense. So, I know nobody wants a boring game to start it off, but an early start time, let's lean under 47.5.
Okay, I know you like Alabama from a season-long perspective. Do you like them as a 14-point favorite, taking on Florida State, total 49.5 in that one?
I don't like the current price at 14. That's the most widely available number. Now, there are some 13 and a halves out there. And just to show you that I think a half point matters, this would be a best bet if it was widely available 13 and a half. Because I mean, let's face it, the Alabama wins by 14. You people are celebrating. Other people, I just give my money back. What do I see here? I think Florida State's the most improved Power Four conference team in the country, but Alabama is a legit national title contender. I think they've been, not priced appropriately all offseason. They haven't been priced like a top 3-4 team in the country, even though I feel that way. Lean at 14, best bet at 13.5.
Okay, Georgia looking to get their season off to a strong start. They're favored by 38.5 points, taking on Marshall, total 55.5. Georgia doesn't typically cover a lot of these monster spreads. I don't know. Maybe it's a bit of a square thought to think that it's week one, so maybe they'll be more motivated to win by margin and keep their foot on the gas. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked this question for this game. Marshall, I've downgraded their power rating more than any team in the country. There's 136 of them. That's a pretty significant downgrade. New coach, entirely different roster. Not buying them. You're right. I normally don't like laying points with Georgia here, but they would be the only side I'd consider. I think what I am really considering, though, Georgia's flying under the radar. They might have the best roster in college football, and
Ooh.
yet you can get them plus 750 to win the title. If you're going to make a bet involving Georgia this weekend, I think them winning the title would be your best bet.
Okay, prime time Saturday night. Beautiful quarterback matchup here between LSU and Clemson. Clemson favored by 3.5. Total 57.5. What are we thinking?
Well, I like the under 57.5. But my job is once the game kicks off, there's nothing I can do. But what I can do and can control is trying to get you guys the best prices. Why it's not a best bet is what you kind of mentioned. Great quarterback matchup. We're talking about two of the Heisman favorites playing quarterback. It's the marquee game on a Saturday night. The betting public has got all day to bet this game. They're going to want to bet over. So my suspicion is I think this line could go higher. That's why it's not a best bet. But I like under for two reasons. Number one, I think LSU's defense might be one of the most improved in the country. But LSU's offense, particularly their offensive line, is going to struggle with this Clemson defensive front.
Okay, some Sunday college football. Absolutely love this. Let's attack both games here. First up, Virginia Tech and South Carolina. South Carolina favored by 7.5. Total 52.5. What do you make of this matchup?
I don't like either team. I bet both under their win total. I bet South Carolina more than any team in my win total portfolio under their win total. I'm not buying them. However, let's see what the power rating says in this individual game. And right now, lean towards South Carolina minus 7.5. We're on a key number. It goes from lean to like if it goes down to 7. There has been some money in Virginia Tech, but they got their captain on the defensive side of the ball got arrested this week. I think they're a dumpster fire waiting to happen this year. So let's lean South Carolina minus 7.5.
Okay, Brad, let's wrap things up. Sunday night prime time, Notre Dame, Miami, 2.5 point dog, total 49.5. What are we thinking?
Yeah, under's been on the move. I really liked it when it, obviously 3-4 points ago. I still lean that way under 49.5 for a multitude of reasons. I think the most proven commodity in this game, and when you're looking at both units on either side of the ball, is Notre Dame's defense. I'm not, buying Carson, Beck, and a new set of Miami wide receivers in game one against this Notre Dame secondary. I'm also not buying Notre Dame with a brand new quarterback. I think they'll have a very conservative game plan. Miami wants to run it. So under for me, it's a lean because, again, the best numbers are gone. I will say this as far as best numbers, there's a few Miami +3s out there, particularly if you're still in Vegas right now watching the show. That's worth a bet, Miami +3.
Hell yeah. Okay, Brad, we're going to leave it at that for today. Of course, you will be back with us on Monday, where we will get into Bill Belichick's debut there in North Carolina. That game taking place on Monday evening, and we'll get into some week 2 best bets, and we'll recap everything that we saw in week 1. So thank you for joining today. Best of luck with all the best bets, and we'll chat with you on Monday.
All right. Thanks for having me. Take care.
All right, joining me now to break down just an incredible slate of action. Week 1. College football. Our guy, former Michigan Wolverine and Denver Bronco, current analyst at the Big Ten Network, Jake Butt. Jake, how are you?
Man, I'm doing great. And a lot of the reason why is because of that slate of games this weekend, Joe. I hope this is a sign of more to come. With all the change in the transfer portal, I think or in college football, I think the transfer portal allows teams to reload, like both Ohio State and Texas. Honestly, a lot of these teams we'll talk about today lost a ton of talent, but have been able to reload, of course, because of recruiting, but also the transfer portal. And then I think because of the expanded playoff, at least I hope that there's an incentive at some level for enough of these games to be scheduled. Not every team embraces it. Indiana's going the exact opposite direction. But man, what a great weekend if you're a fan of football. Even if you're not a fan of football, you get to tune into some awesome games.
Yeah, probably being a prisoner of the moment, but maybe the best week 1 slate ever in college football. Let's go.
Right?
Okay, so let's get your perspective as a former player on something. Do you think week 1 creates an opportunity for more sloppiness and maybe more upsets because simply some teams and some players, some coaches being underprepared?
Sloppiness, absolutely. Upsets, it certainly kind of depends on the opponent. Like what happens in a lot of week 1 matchups is, you have good teams playing against lesser opponents. We'll talk about some of the fun matchups this weekend. We'll also talk about Michigan against New Mexico. Michigan could be sloppy. They're not losing that week 1 game. But, it's not just the players, though, Joe. And we'll talk about Texas, Ohio State here in a second. Coordinators is another piece of this, and Ohio State's going to be introducing 2 new coordinators. Brian Hartline, first-time play caller. Matt Patricia has called plays, but the first time calling plays for the Buckeye defense. That's another element of this. And then the road home factor can increase or decrease the amount of expected sloppiness. For me, I'd even look like, where are the young guys and the new starters? That's going to increase the butterflies. But ultimately, it is matchup dependent. If you want to, predict or project, hey, how sloppy could the sloppiness lead to an upset?
Okay, let's talk about your Michigan Wolverines. A modest 34.5-point favorite taking on New Mexico State. This is the biggest favorite they've been in close to 2 years. So how confident are you that they can not only win by 35 or more, but be motivated to win by 35 or more? Could the foot come off the gas?
The foot will not come off the gas. I do not believe that. I think Michigan, especially with a young quarterback in Bryce and a new offensive coordinator, and understanding, hey, next week against Oklahoma, this is their one test. They have got to get going quickly because they're going on the road to Oklahoma. So I don't expect them to take the foot off the gas. But that's a lot of points. I mean, these things are really hard to gauge. You look historically, Michigan has been able to blow out some teams week 1, week 2. And, Fresno State's definitely better than New Mexico. Michigan beat them by 20 last year. Here's what I know. New Mexico's not going to score. They might get 3 points. Maximum, they'd get 7. This Michigan defense is loaded. The defensive line and defensive front is going to be a complete mismatch. So there's going to be turnovers and TFLs and negative plays. Michigan's going to be able to run the ball. I think how you handicap this, how much is Michigan going to want to throw the ball with their new quarterback? I don't think you want to drop him back 40 times, but could there be value in letting him practice that in a game type setting? that kind of helps. It's going to come really down to that of Michigan could run the ball and cover this spread. Quarterback would never have to throw it once. But how much are they willing? And then what does it look like? What if they do throw it and Bryce looks as good as we've thought? Okay, now you might see 40 or 50 point winning margin.
Okay, let's talk about that young man at quarterback for the Wolverines, Bryce Underwood. He just turned 18 years old. He has superstar written all over him. Who's a good comp for him in terms of his play style? And what is the ceiling here? Are we looking at a future first round pick in the NFL draft?
Ceiling, I mean, at this point, all we have to go off of, and I want to be careful about how I frame this, it's just his physical traits. And his physical traits, I mean, you're talking about a comp like a Jamarcus Russell. I, I don't want to say Cam Newton, but there's some of that element because I saw him in practice and he's my height and he's 230 pounds of pure muscle. And when he gets running, he's really hard to bring down. He's not quite Cam Newton. I've settled on maybe a Trevor Lawrence, okay? And just in terms of a highly touted recruit that a program brings in and puts all their chips on the table saying, man, this guy's level of talent can take us to the promised land. Now, the reason I frame it that way is talent is only the beginning of the story. I'll use a great example. When Ohio State won their national championship back in 2014, JT Barrett was their starting quarterback. Remember, he gets hurt and we get to see Cardale Jones. And all the conversation was, man, Cardale Jones is as physically talented as anybody. He could throw the ball 70 yards. They told stories that he would throw the ball at a graduate assistant and knock the hat off of his head from 50 yards away. So why, if he's so talented, wasn't he starting over JT Barrett? I would never describe JT Barrett as pure, raw talented. And it's because quarterback is about so much more than just physical gifts and talent. Right now, Bryce checks every single box of physical gifts. It remains to be seen of how he's going to go in terms of mental processing, his discipline to take checkdowns, to throw the ball away, knowing coverage assignments. I call the spring game. He struggled when there was a post-snap changing of the picture from like cover 2 to cover 1 or zone to man. And that's true for every freshman. He's a film room junkie. All that's positive, but we just won't know until, it gets put on film.
Okay, let's get into the big one. Prisoner of the moment stuff once again. Texas, Ohio State feels like the biggest regular season game in a very long time. Both teams at the top of the national championship futures odds board. Of course, you got Arch at quarterback, so some Heisman implications. What do you think the biggest mismatch on the field is going to be for this game?
I'd go actually off the field. But I guess it kind of has ripple effects. It's going to be the coordinators. Texas's defensive coordinator, Pete Kwiatkowski, is just an awesome mind. Start calling plays offensively. Just a great mind. I mean, they have that's the continuity for Texas. And Texas did a great job of taking away Jeremiah Smith in that playoff matchup. They made life hard on Ohio State. Thankfully for the Buckeyes, they were able to capitalize on some big explosive plays, including a defensive touchdown. But Ohio State is introducing 2 new coordinators. Brian Hartline remains to be seen. I mean, a few years ago, he was promoted as the offensive coordinator in the spring and then demoted later ahead of the season. Left wondering, why was that the case? Obviously, Matt Patricia is an experienced coach, but this is a different beast coaching this Ohio State defense and at the college level. And of course, they're replacing a ton of guys. That's the biggest mismatch, is the chess match between coordinators. Now, what I will say is Ryan Day hosted a mock game earlier in this week. The fact that it's at home helps Ohio State. The coordinators got in their game day positions with their assistant coaches. They got to practice their game day operations and communication. So that the home field does help Ohio State there. And then in terms of on the field, here's what I'll say. I mean, these programs are here to stay. Okay, both of them have a ton of talent. Both of them lost talent to the NFL. That's going to be the case for eternity because of the resources. The advantage for Ohio State is they have by far the best offensive player in Jeremiah Smith. The disadvantage is Texas has the ability to take somebody away. Well, the reason Ohio State was able to win in that playoff game is other players stepped up. We'll talk about it later in the show. Ohio State has the best tight end in college football, in my opinion, Max Klare. If a safety has to go over the top to help the corner double Jeremiah Smith, that means you're leaving a linebacker on Max Klare. When he was at Purdue, opponents would put their best corner on him, and he still had 50-plus catches. That's the key to this game. Ohio State's introducing a new quarterback in Julian Sayin, who can win and help out Sayin outside of Jeremiah Smith. And I'll say this Joe. I know I'm rambling a bit here. Arch Manning, his legs, big. He's an athletic Manning. That's rare. It doesn't even feel right saying that. Ohio State's speed at linebacker is the best I've seen. I mean, they have Arvell Reese and Sonny Styles are 4-4 guys. Caleb Downs' closing speed at safety is another huge element in this game.
Okay, so we have Ohio State favored by 1.5. This is not a team that loses a lot on its home field, unless, of course, Michigan is coming to town. Jake will tell us all about that. So, two-part question. Who are you picking to win the game, and which program needs the win more in terms of perception and momentum going forward into the season?
I would pick Texas to win this game in terms of we're talking a betting show, and it's just because I get plus odds and what I see to be a complete toss-up. It's a complete mystery. You play this game 100 times, I think it'd be close to 50-50. I just like the fact that I'm getting plus odds. I would take Arch Manning as a quarterback right now over Julian Sayin, and I would take the play callers for Texas over Ohio State. I think they both got talent. In terms of perception, who needs this? Joe, I honestly think that question doesn't necessarily apply these days. And I use Michigan, Ohio State's loss to Michigan last year as an example. It's one of the benefits of college football now is you have some buffer to lose a game early and still redeem yourself. But it also makes these questions really hard to answer. The truth is Texas, it feels like now it's their turn. They've been knocking on the door for a few years now. Winning this game on the road and Columbus can do a ton for the psyche of your team and also for your young quarterback, Arch Manning. So if I had to pick there, I think Texas would need this win more. Ohio State, you can make the excuse they're introducing coordinators, everything I've just said. So I'd lean Texas if I had to pick.
Okay, another banger, primetime Saturday night. We have LSU and Clemson. Clemson's favored by 3.5 points. How do you feel about the matchup? And do you think this is the year Brian Kelly gets LSU over the hump? They're viewed by odds makers as a bit of a fringe team in terms of getting into the playoff.
Well, I think we talked about it recently. Just, I love the quarterbacks in this game. I love Klubnik. I love Nussmeier. Could this be the hump? I don't think I'm not concerned necessarily about LSU's offense. It's going to be their defense. That secondary was poorly rated last year. They gave up a ton of yards in big moments, and Clemson is built to take advantage of that with Klubnik, with their offensive linemen, with their weapons outside. And then on the flip side, when LSU has the football, here's going to be the matchup is LSU lost 4 offensive linemen that all got drafted. Clemson thinks they have one of the best defensive line. That's kind of been the consensus. And yet I'd say, Joe, they were last in the ACC in terms of rushing yards allowed per game last year. Those statements are a bit contradictory. So I say that to say this, the key in this game, we're all going to be, chasing the cheese of 2 great quarterbacks and we want to see them duel it out. Which team can more consistently run the ball? Which team can run the ball in the biggest moments? That's going to be the deciding factor in this game. I think both quarterbacks are pretty athletic, even though, Klubnik is definitely known to be athletic. Nussmeier, I think he hit like 22 miles an hour on the GPS, but I think which team's offensive line can create rushing lanes up front, I would lean towards Clemson with that in mind.
Okay, the hits keep on coming. Sunday night college football. Absolutely love this matchup. We have Notre Dame Fighting Irish favored by 2.5 against Miami. So how do you feel about the matchup, and how do you feel about that quarterback for Miami, Carson Beck? Do you think he can get back to that respectability that he had at this time last year when he was viewed as one of the favorites for the Heisman and looked at as a top pick in the NFL draft?
No, I don't. I'll be blunt with you. There's talk that Carson Beck has first round potential, and I'm willing to be proven wrong. If I owned I'm watching the Jerry Jones documentary. If I was the owner of an NFL team and my GM took Carson Beck in the first round, he would be fired. I just do not see him at any level as a first round high level quarterback. And I think this is going to be a really tough matchup. He struggled last year against the better passing defenses in college football. Notre Dame has one of the best secondaries, one of the best defenses in college football. Now, again, a theme. They're replacing their defensive coordinator. They brought in a guy named Chris Ash. I have buddies that played for him throughout their college career. They said he's a great mind. I think that the transition will be smoothed out because of the fact Freeman has a defensive background. But Carson Beck, that's been his MO throughout his career. I think it's going to be really tough for him to find success against this Notre Dame defense. And then I'll say this: Notre Dame is one of the best offensive lines in college football. Miami's got a great defensive line, but Notre Dame may have the best running back and running back room in college football. Introduced CJ Carr, met him in person. Dude's a star of a human. We'll see what he looks like this weekend when he takes the field, but their ability to run the ball will be the difference.
Okay, big spotlight game Monday night. TCU taking on Bill Belichick and the North Carolina Tar Heels. Tar Heels are a 3.5-point dog. How much of a shot do you give Belichick to not just cover that spread, but get the W on Monday night?
I give him a shot, and that's a home game as well. And I think that really the deciding factor is there's a ton of new players here. And I think the big advantage that Bill Belichick brings is his ability to scout. Like, no one's going to be able to scout and anticipate and game plan at the college level better than Belichick and the coaches and support he surrounded himself with from a staff standpoint. The question remains, can he take that intelligence and instill it into his players where they can then go out and execute it when the bullets are flying on the field? This is a completely brand new roster. I think just about half of their starters are from the transfer portal. A number of those guys are coming from lower level college football and playing up. I just don't know. That's probably one of the things I'm most curious to see this year. One of the big strengths for Belichick is his game planning, his situational awareness. Sometimes that gets lost, especially to college kids. It'll be a fun test to see how that looks when they take the field.
Okay, last but not least, your best bet of the weekend. What do you got?
I'm a little bit biased, but I promise I'm going to back it with facts. I'm going tight end Max Klare for Ohio State over 34.5 receiving yards. And here's the reason why. Texas, we talked about it earlier. Every great defensive coordinator should say, let's take away the strength of our opponent. Well, Ohio State's introducing a new quarterback, Julian Sand. He's going to be looking for Jeremiah Smith, he'd be a top 10 NFL receiver right now, and yet he's a sophomore in college. Texas is going to have to double team him. Ohio State has another great receiver in Carnell Tate. So that there's going to be your nickel and your other safety accounting for him. This is the mathematical equation that's going to make Ohio State so hard to stop. Max Klare is the best tight end in college football. He has a ton of Colston Loveland to his game. I think he's a first-round pick. So what you're saying is Texas is going to likely end up with a linebacker having to guard Julian Sand. When you're introducing a new quarterback, he's 5'11". He's going to have some challenges seeing over the line of scrimmage. A big friendly target like your tight end and Max Klare against a slower linebacker, that's going to be the matchup they go to in critical situations. And I saw him in camp. They are very high on Max Klare. The coaches told me that they have never had a talent like Max Klare. 34.5 seems like a really low mark for what I would believe to be one of the best weapons in college football, certainly the best tight end.
You have me convinced. I will be telling you on that one. Okay, Jake, we're going to leave it at that for today. I cannot wait to see all this action play out, and I do look forward to speaking with you again next Thursday when we cover all the week 2 action. Enjoy the games. Best of luck with that bet, and we'll catch you next week.
Can't wait, Joe. Good luck.